So hello again, my name is Cy Williams, and I'm a theater major from the College of the Arts with a concentration in both playwriting and directing. So essentially, I am more interested in the creative production side of the theater industry than, let's say, acting or technical design. My end goal would be the ability to craft a story that leaves a lasting impressions on audiences. So for my honors project, I wanted to combine my love for history and my love for writing, which led me to Cross My Heart and Hope to Die, a play that I'm using as a way to dissect a period of American history known as the end of American innocence. So essentially, the end of American innocence, American culture is marked by this period of social and political unrest that lasted between 1968 to the end of the Vietnam War in 1975, with 1968 being the most destructive year in recent memory and in American history. And the idea of the end of American innocence is that America, up until this point, is seen as a perfect country that had absolutely zero flaws. And in the 60s, we see this decade of civil rights protests for all minority groups. And it forces Americans to realize that for the first time, that there are actually a lot of social problems within their country that are in desperate need of fixing. And I could spend hours going into minute detail on the intricacies of my script, but to sum it up very quickly, it's set in late 1968. My main character, William Green, is a biracial teenager who is forced to move across the country, where he befriends a group of social outcasts who force him to question his views on family, love, and the war that has stripped him of his family, that has taken a hold of his family, because he has grown up in a military family. So to break down my process of writing the script, I broke it down into three different sections. The first one is the research section. What are the historical boundaries of the story that I'm about to tell? Two is the writing section. How can I articulate the story? And anything before production that I'm including in rehearsal, I'm including in the writing section. And then when we finally reached rehearsal online, then I'm considering that the production section. How can we truthfully tell the story that I wrote? Fully contextualize the world in which I will be setting my play, I researched the American public's rapidly shifting perception of the Vietnam War in 1968 and the history of queer culture in America since the American Revolution. So first is his research on the Vietnam War. And the history of the Vietnam War is pretty straightforward, but public perception shifted after Walter Cronkite questioned the government's involvement in the foreign war. And that is really the beginning shift of Americans questioning, why are we even involved in this? Like, we have nothing to gain and we have nothing to lose. And then my research on queer American history is where I discovered the most about what my play was going to be and really how I gained the rights as a queer man that I have today. So I divided the 200+ year history into 6 distinct categories, and I followed the queer community's journey towards civil rights throughout this 200-year history. And the queer community wouldn't be recognized as an agent in the civil rights movement until the Stonewall riots in June of 1969. And that is exactly why I chose to set my play in late of 1968, because we are on the verge of something great, changes on the way. So the writing section. And I just want to preface by saying that around the time I started drafting, last May, last June, was the beginning of Pride Month. At the same time, we saw both the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd last summer. And it was then that I knew I would be writing something timely and relevant. And I understood that the scenes I would be drafting were not events left in the 60s, but events that we are still experiencing today. And I wrote the first draft in about 3 days and it totaled around 93 pages. Sorry. My specific writing process differs between each writer, and I discovered I spend most of my writing time actually not writing, but plotting out every single event in detail. So when I finally sit down to write out the script, I already know what's going to happen. And it comes a lot easier for me. And then after the first draft, I found a director who was as interested in this project as I was. And we moved on to conducting initial read-throughs of the early drafts with actors and audiences. And this took place in November of last fall when I took another advanced playwriting course. And it was then that I asked 3 important questions to the audiences. What was engaging? What was confusing? And what do you think is going to happen next? And the biggest response I got from those who read an early draft was that it was very emotional in the best way possible because of how timely the subject matter was. And this was honestly the first time I truly understood the impact original stories can have on people, that writing from someone that has a message they believe is important leaves a more lasting impression due to the honest element of it. Also, writing has a weird way of hiding secrets that are waiting to be discovered within it. And it was after these initial read-throughs in November that I identified an unconscious writing choice, that the characters in my play each represent a different facet of the end of American innocence in this new journey that the country is moving towards. So for example, my main character, William, is on a journey to self-acceptance. Another character, Jacob, is on a journey towards social acceptance. And another character, James, is on a journey towards social destruction, and etc. for each different character. And again, this is my creative mind combined with the historical research that I previously did, turning into a piece of writing that audiences can easily relate to. And the journey of bringing this play to audiences was a challenging one due to the coronavirus. And the basis of working in creative production is problem solving. And this project taught me how to easily adapt to new situations whenever they arose. The original production for this project was originally going to be a 3-week run in the Arena Theater on campus as a fully staged production, which essentially means that it would be full sets, full costumes, full lights, sounds, etc. But due to the pandemic and the social distancing guidelines, the production was moved online towards a virtual staged reading. And that is where we did our entire rehearsal process and our final film stage reading that we are presenting to audiences tonight. The rehearsal process, the process of actually bringing the characters to life for the first time, was the most challenging process for me throughout this entire year-long journey. Because in May and June of last summer, the story that I first wrote was not the story that was in front of me in February, in March, and April. And I really struggled with letting things go, because to me, everything was important to the overall story. So why would I want to delete anything from it? But one of the biggest lessons that I learned throughout this entire process was taught to me by a legendary actress that I was fortunate enough to have in my cast. And she sat me down one night after rehearsal, and she really questioned me by asking me, what am I trying to say with this story? And why am I holding myself back from saying it? And it was in this moment that I realized that I was writing a play on the exploration of sexuality and what that means to a person and what that means for the rest of their family. So essentially, what is the true essence of love? Writing is a very cathartic process, and I believe it's honestly the most personal thing you could put on a stage. And it was through this project that I was allowing the entire world to see a side of me that I wasn't so sure about myself. And in March and April, at the end of rehearsals, I really had to let just everything go and show everybody like what I'm trying to bring to the world. Throughout from May and until April, I drafted about 11 different versions of the script that have ranged from 70 pages to 120 pages, but the final page number totals at around 76 pages. In the entire filming process and seeing the final product was an out-of-body experience to watch these actors say these words that I've been writing and rewriting for months. And it's really something I have a hard time describing because it honestly doesn't feel real. But after writing and rewriting for 11 months, I took a week-long break when it was done. And then I got right back into writing a final draft for submission, which I am hoping to have turned in and finished by next week. So where am I now? It's taken me a full year, but I had my first full-length play that had been workshopped and rehearsed, and it's ready for the next step, which would be a fully staged production. And I've matured so much as a story creator over the past year, who fully grasps the idea that original stories can change people's perceptions of the world that they are living in. And it is the 1-year anniversary of when I first started this project, and the filmed reading of this project premieres tonight, and it is available to stream online at natelyn.wixsite.com/crossmyheart. That is the name of my director, and he was gracious enough to put together an entire website where you can stream it and learn more about the actors and the entire process. I just want to give a few thank yous. I want to thank you to my director, Nate Lynn, the entire cast and crew, all of my friends and family members who have put up with me for this past year. And I want to thank, most importantly, my brilliant mentor, Mark Ramont, for guiding me on this difficult and tiring process. And I've written in every draft, and I'll say it again for one final time, that this project is really dedicated to all of those who found themselves despite the odds. Despite everything, if you're brave enough to accept who you are, that's all that matters in the world. That's it. Thank you.